Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I'm thrilled to chat with writer Eric Holmes. Eric was a writer on the critically acclaimed TV series The Good Fight on Paramount Plus, as well as Evil on CBS and Smash on NBC. Today, we chat with Eric about the new recording of Wild About You, the musical for which he wrote the book, alongside music and lyrics by Chilina Kennedy. In addition to wonderful performances by the original album's all-star cast, the new edition includes 2 newly recorded bonus tracks, songs written for the show but not included on the original recording. Wild About You, World Premiere Recording Deluxe Edition, is available in digital and streaming formats on Friday, September 27th. In Wild About You, main character Olivia finds herself at a life-or-death crossroads as she faces the fallout of her relentless need to please, and the true extent of the chaos she's woven in her life becomes painfully clear. In a race against time, she sifts through the poignant memories of her 3 great loves, seeking the key to untangling her past. Let's hear the title track from the album, then jump into the interview with acclaimed writer for television and stage, Eric Holmes.
I'm wild about you. I'm wild about you. I'm wild about you. I've always known that I was wild about you. You're coming loose and here we are. You can play me like I'm your guitar. You saw the thing under the bed. Now get the bugs out of your head. And when you're feeling brave enough, you'll cut him loose when things get rough. Then he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. Then he's long gone. Take me to another time when I am yours and you are mine. We'll find our little secret place that our mistakes cannot erase. All I want is all of you and all of you to want me to. He'll be gone, gone, and I'm so wild about you. I'm wild about you. I'm wild about you. My heart beats fast 'cause I am here with. I've never had these thoughts before, but there is nothing I want more than your body close to mine. I've never felt so alive. Feelings you can never change. Once it's all been rearranged, I'm gone, gone. 'Cause I'm so wild about you. My dreams. I'm wild about you. Hearts explode. I'm wild about you. Close to the I've always known that I was wild. Why is love so complicated? If this is it, then we have made it. We can't go back 'cause it's too late. I'm wild about you. I've always known that I was wild about.
Hi, this is Eric.
Hi, this is Les Weiler from the TV Dudes.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate
Oh,
it.
my pleasure.
Our podcast is mostly about television. I'd seen your work on Good Fight, Evil, Smash, a lot of, and so I was very excited to get to talk to you just from a TV writing standpoint about working with the Kings. Their shows often feel different than
Right.
other television shows. There seems to be a playfulness and a fun there that has a real style to them. So I was excited to talk to you about that. But also, I just know from my own time in college and having friends that were majoring in musical theater, I remember kind of being surprised when I learned about the difference between book and music. That more
yeah.
writers than I realized went into musical theater, and so I've always found that to be an interesting facet of writing. The way that television is different from features, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I was just excited to get to talk to you about it. So, of course, I've gotten to listen to some of the tracks on Wild About You. Can you talk a little bit about sitting down to write the book, the impetus for the play, and then working with Chilina Kennedy about I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, about the music, and bringing that all to life.
Yeah, this is the most unique musical writing experience I've ever had. On other shows, I come up with an idea, or my writing partner and I come up with an idea, and we outline it, and we talk. This could be a song. This could be a song. This could be, whatever. And this is a totally different way into it, which was Chilina had written an album of really wonderful songs. They were trying to turn into a musical. And the director at the time was like, I think you should actually have a real book writer. And they reached out to me, and I listened to the album, and I just loved it. I mean, from track one, I loved it. And I just thought, yeah, you could make this work. And I also liked that it wasn't traditional musical theater, that the songs for the most part were just legitimate pop music, just really good songwriting. And I thought, oh, that's kind of great. And I really feel that's where musical theater is going. So I thought, what a wonderful challenge. But more than anything, what sold me was I talked to Chilina, and there are certain people in your life that you meet that you're just like, yes, you. Like, I get you, I know you, I understand you. You're someone I want to spend part of my life with. And she was just one of those collaborators. And so we've just been playing ever since then. And it's a little bit like a jukebox musical where there was a stack of songs that we could plug and play. And it's also like an original musical because as the show developed, she would write and just churn out these one great song after another. It was just a dream. And so we would start playing, and we tried one version and we tried another version. And then she pitched an idea where, what if we combined the first two versions? So there was an act one and an act two. And it was great. She's one of the greatest collaborators I've ever had in that she kind of says yes to everything, and she's a big throw it against the wall and let's see if it works. And there's no fear of failure, and there's no shyness with failure. So we've just tried and fallen down a few times. But where we've landed now it's spectacular, and it's moving, and it's a very exciting story, and it's really moving music.
That's great to hear. I had not considered that it might be, like you said, a little bit closer to starting with a jukebox musical and then kind of building it, because you've got that set of songs. And I mean, I love pop music. Music was a huge part of my growing up, and I'm always a sucker for the 70s, the big concept album years. I'm always wanting to look for that through line. It almost frustrates me when I got into 90s, early aughts, and I started getting bands that I also loved, but who didn't have a big theme to the album. And I was like, oh, well, these are just kind of all episodic. So did it kind of require sitting down and discussing with her what was her through line in writing the album before it was a play, and kind of finding what her theme was? It wasn't written like a concept album. It was just a collection of really good songs. And when someone pitched the idea from her theater company that she runs up in Canada, that what if you tried it as a musical, she started kind of manufacturing a story around it. And then I kind of came in and gave it bigger concepts because it was very direct address. Like the characters would just kind of talk to the audience. And I kind of have a bad reaction to that kind of writing. So I was like, oh, let's not do that. Which ironically, now we're back at a draft where the main character does do some direct address. But the only way I allowed it is there's a twist where you realize she's not actually talking to the audience. She's just talking to someone you don't see until later in the story. Got it.
Which
it's really not a fourth wall break. It's a...
Yes, that helped my soul because I couldn't quite fully sleep at night. But so it was a matter of that. And we kind of just developed this story about a very complex woman who was a people pleaser. And it spoke to Chilina. It spoke to me because, I mean, I have those elements, but I also know a lot of women in my life who have those issues with saying no or drawing boundaries or trying to make everything okay or trying to solve the world's problems. And in doing so, they create a great amount of unhappiness for themselves. So we just kind of followed that path, and it was really wonderful because it now has become this gorgeous story of redemption and love and finding yourself and second chances, which I think is a story we need right now. I think we're very quick to judge people. I think we're very quick to cancel people. And there's a permanence to our cancelings nowadays, which I think is not helpful to any society. By all means, if someone steps out of line, punishment, admonishment is a good thing. But we have to be forgiving. We have to, allow someone to learn and come back. Otherwise, they stay in exile and form their own country and go to war.
That's kind of been the shoe I've been waiting to drop socially in the last few years. There's not really like an elbow we can send. There's not an island we can send all these, that everybody can't. They can't just vanish. They're going to still be out there. So there has to be a path. Like I'm not saying that some people shouldn't have, found out for some of the dumb stuff that has been said, but there has to be a path back because they can't just vanish. And
we talked about it in
what do we do with
the Good Fight. Yeah, we talked about that in the Good Fight Writers Room a lot. The whole, once cancel culture really was peaking, we kept talking about, it's unfortunate that culture had to step up where the legal system failed massively, and it did fail massively. Mm-hmm. But the thing with the legal system is you go through a process and then you're dealt a punishment, and then after your punishment, you re-enter society. But when the culture does it as a whole, what do you do? And so is there a path back? We used to talk about how, back in the 80s, if someone said something racist, they talked to Al Sharpton.
Right. They did their tour. Yeah. No, I had a good friend of mine that was like, man, people,
okay.
Yeah, just you used to have there was an amount of time I needed you to lay low. And then there was an amount of penance that you were going to have to do. And then if you stayed cool, we would grudgingly, let you back into our homes. For me, and again, I don't make the whole interview about cancel culture or anything. But I kind of felt that it gave voice to the lie that we kind of tell ourselves that but you've done your time in prison. Because we treat ex-cons like they are still there. We don't like to really say, well, okay, you're off paper, you get your vote back. Like, people will immediately start backing up of like, do they get their vote back? Like, well, they should. They did their time.
Yeah.
And so, but at the very least, even if maybe that wasn't societally really true, there was math that you could look at of like, okay, you did what, and you spent how long in a box? Okay, you're cool. Whether that's true or not, we at least had some math that you could lay out to it. And like you said, there's just when you're kind of relying on society to just pick up the slack there, well, there's not really paperwork to look at later and go, well, you did it,
Right.
And so,
right. Well, it's a crazy thing because as a society, we're very black and white, and we want people punished and to never come back. And I don't know what everyone expects these people to go do, but it's so weird because in personal life, I don't know about you, but like you're forgiving people all the time because your friends, your family, your loved ones, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone says something stupid or behaves in a way that is inconsiderate of your feelings or whatever it is.
Right.
The only way we move forward in life is to forgive people. There's just no one out there who's just nailing it 24/7.
No. So, I think we're all here by the grace of our friends, having let us say some dumb stuff or ask an inelegant question.
Yeah, and that's why like telling the story of redemption really resonated with us because we do make a lot of mistakes, especially in the name of love, where we don't want to hurt anyone. Sometimes trying so hard not to hurt anyone, you actually end up hurting everyone, And so it's about finding the balance between honoring yourself and what you want to do and what your instincts are telling you to, and being kind to those around you and loving those around you without them taking advantage of you. And it's, it's a hard, never-ending balance. But it was really, and it still is. I mean, my gosh, we're about to do a workshop, and I'm sure it'll evolve yet again one more time. But it's a wonderful world to explore and to keep digging around in because we're constantly surprised with how much deeper we can go.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So I wanted to ask, in terms of taking songs that were written not necessarily with a musical in mind, did you find yourself tempted to pull some of them towards those musical theater staples? Like, okay, I know this is whatever track on the album, but I think that's your 11 o'clock number. I think this is your, did you feel a temptation to move the songs to that?
Yes. I mean, all the songs were moved quite freely around. And like I said, she wrote quite a few, if not half of the score is now new. So, yes, we'd move things, traditionally, because, there's a format. And I hate to be one of those writers who's like, there's a format, but there is. I mean, you can fight against it all you want, but you can look at every musical that exists, and they're still following the format. They can act like they're not, but they are. One of the greatest musicals, I think, that's out there and most successful is Book of Mormon. And that one is almost to the number, paint by number, in the best possible way. They said, this is the form, we're doing the form, and we're going to do it our way. And that's what makes it unique and different. Like, I think people who are scared of form are scared because they haven't found their own voice.
Yeah.
So they are just parodying this other form. But if you have your own voice, you should totally embrace the format, because then if you're like, I don't want to do an I Want song, it doesn't feel right for the show, well, at least you know the reason why you're not going to do it.
Yes.
You know why your story needs to be a little different in that unique way.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes for all forms to some extent. You don't have to follow it, but you have to at least understand it.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that you need to know the rules to break them properly, if that makes sense. I did college undergrad with painting as an art major, and I had a great professor in my freshman year who set us all down and we were all coming straight out of high school art, going, well, if you guys would just stop putting limits on it, I'd make the greatest art you've ever seen. Well, that's bullshit. It wasn't all how it was going to work, and I had a great professor who set us all down and was like, look, I'm just going to say this straight out. An infinite amount of white space to paint on is impossible. It will never work. That your art's going to come from the interaction with the limits, and that you've got to know where the edge of the canvas is to decide what you're doing here. And that always kind of stayed with me, whether it was in painting or whether it was in writing or trying to make music or whatever creative endeavors I got into. It always made sense that you, like you said, if you don't want to have the I Want number, you should at least know why, so that you know what void you're leaving. And because I came up college in the age of Tarantino first really hitting, and suddenly every friend of mine's screenplay was very Tarantino-ish, which just breaks all, it's stuff you're going to fail a class writing like that. But and they'd go, well, he did it. I'm like, yeah, but I know he saw thousands of movies that did not do it before he broke them. Mm-hmm. And even then I would have my criticisms for how Tarantino's movies work, but I feel like you do kind of have to know the game you're playing in order to put your style there.
I mean, limits they're key. I think they're essential. I think it's why I love television so much, because there's just an endless amount of limits you have.
Yeah.
That actor's not available. You only can get this guest actor for 2 days. You've lost your location. You have 5 days till you shoot the next episode.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And it's great. It forces creativity, I think, in a very positive way. I know there are plenty of people who hate that schedule and hate working like that. But I actually kind of love it. I mean, tell me I can use a location and make me come up with something better. I'll do it any day. I love it.
Yeah. I just rewatched David Mamet's State and Maine movie, and they've got to move locations at the start of it to a town that doesn't have an old mill, and the movie's called The Old Mill that they're making.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, how do I make a movie that's called The Old Mill with no old mill?" Like, well, first of all, you got to change that title. And like it's
Right.
but you, you love that. There's an ingenuity, necessity, some other of invention. Like there's an ingenuity that arises there. Obviously, there's a breaking point to it. We've all seen, things that just push too far, and like, oh, okay, well, that season just not going to work.
Yeah.
But there's a real brilliance that can be found to me in the pinched moments. I know for television, at least from a viewer standpoint, the Kings shows always. I don't want to say a silliness, but there's a playfulness to how they'll deal with even serious things like an evil sometimes. Or God, not that Good Wife and Good Fight did not also deal with some very serious topics.
Right, but there weren't demons. So
can you talk a little bit about how that vibe works in the room in terms of breaking a season across, with a bunch of writers in a room, but then you're each kind of getting your own. Well, this episode's Eric's. You wrote the penultimate episode to Good Fight, if I remember right.
I did.
Yeah,
it was truly one of the best honors I've ever had in my career.
I love Carrie Preston to death. I'm so happy she got to direct that episode.
Isn't she amazing?
When you were talking earlier about so many women in, I think, everybody's lives that have been in some regard raised to people please a little more than they should, put themselves second. It kills me how many women I've talked to who it just seems like they did not get to everybody else in the cast might have gotten to direct an episode, and it just maybe not occurred to them to push or add. I'm always thrilled whenever I see an actress I adore getting that shot, because I know that can be tough to ask for, tough to get.
You know what I will say about the King world is it was heavily female dominated in like the most wonderful way. Like, it is a shining example of let women run it. It will work so well. Our line producer, our UPM, our most of our directors, like the editors, the head of post. I mean, like just powerful women everywhere you look. Not to mention Michelle King, who is like the ultimate example of great writing, great producing. Like, just I think about how she would handle a situation like on a daily basis. She's just so good at what she does. So it's a great example of when you have that environment, it's very easy for women to see themselves all around them and go, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can try that. Script coordinators will get shots at directing. It was a really great environment to play in.
In terms of, we're going to open the interview with the title track, but there's so many good songs on here. Gold is amazing. Did you have a particular, when you were first? I realize this music is different than what you got to originally hear before you guys started the project for Wild About You. But did you have a particular song where you stopped it and went, "We're doing this. I've got to do this"?
There's a song which is on this album, but was originally on her album. That was just her solo album called "Without You," and it's the first song on her album, and it just made me so happy because it does what I love music to do, which is it's a very sad song, but it has this chorus that's just kind of this ba 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 da da, and it's just so upbeat and so charming, and so it's the duality of trying to cheer yourself up when you're so low. And I just immediately was like, yes, I can write to this. This is what musical theater does, because musical theater is all about dualities. It's all about singing one thing, meaning another thing. And so that was the track that really got me into the show. Now, the track on the big album we have right now, which is just dream album, that really speaks to me Oh God! Now you're asking me to pick between favorite children. I don't know if I could pick one because as soon as I say one out loud, I know I'm going to be like, oh well, you know what? Actually, it's this other one. But "Take Us Down" is probably one on this album that just, given it sounds massive and cinematic on the album because of how wonderful Daniel Edmonds orchestrated and arranged it and produced it. But it also sounds exactly the way I always heard it when it was just a piano. Like that's what blows my mind about it is it's still the same song that was just sung by two people at a piano in a room. And yet, on the album, it takes on a whole new life, and it's just such a sweeping testament to love and loving someone who you sometimes can't be with, but still loving them from afar. I mean, it hits so many things that just speak to your inner soul.
Can you talk a little bit about what brought you to musical theater? And it's a specific type of writing. I mean, I know some of us grew up loving television. Some people grew up loving features more.
Mm-hmm.
Was there something that appealed to you about the amalgam of it's a different kind of storytelling when the emotionality just literally explodes out of somebody in melody.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what I think it's indescribable. I think it's just something that since I was 8, musicals just made sense to me. They were joyous, but they were sad. They hit everything. They were such a gorgeous outlet of catharsis for me. Throughout my entire life, there's always a musical at some point, some way, somehow that spoke to whatever I needed to hear of what I was going through. As a writer, what speaks to me is it's the hardest form, period. There is no harder form than writing a book for a musical. And what I also love about that is no one knows book writers. You could write the greatest book in the history of ever, and no one will know your name. And I'm so okay with that. Because they'll only know the people who wrote the music. And that's great. That's totally fine by me. I love the puzzle of making musical work. It's insanely hard because musicals don't make sense. And I love them, but it makes no sense for someone to burst into song. You know?
Yeah.
And so it's this spectacular challenge, and every single musical I've written is totally different than the one before. They're just constantly like on polar opposite sides, and it's fun. I love it. I love the challenge. It's the puzzle.
Oftentimes, when folks are kind of growing up and realizing how much they like writing or that writing's going to be their thing, that's such a solo pursuit. It can be, it's about as lonely as being the kid with the book, the reader kid, it's that next step of, I can just keep entertaining myself. That's great. Let me just make up a world where I like everybody. And can you talk a little bit about the first time, or was there a first big memory of that collaborative moment? I think sometimes people don't realize that a screenplay is no screenplay is a finished anything. It's an invitation to collaborate.
No.
And that you if you aren't open to bringing more people, it's just not going to work. Can you talk a little bit about that first transition between, maybe writing short stories for yourself or entertaining yourself with stories and then collaborating with someone?
Yeah. The first time. I mean, I don't know. That might be.
Did you have a crew in high school or college that were also into this?
I mean, honestly, first time you're talking like 4th grade. I think I wrote a play about the colonization of America. We were studying Native Americans, and so I was like, the only way I know how to process this is to turn it into a play. I don't know why. So I did, and then had to direct my entire class into doing it, and that was incredible. I mean, it's the great thing about writing is you can't do it alone. You have to collaborate. It's the greatest thing in the world. Like, that's why I don't write novels. Like, I don't want to sit in a room I will, but I don't want to sit in a room and hide away. I want to have an actor say, well, what if I said it this way? What if I tried it that way? What if I entered here? I mean, I could collaborate forever. It's why writing for television is a dream, because 10 to 12 people in a room arguing with each other and also laughing and having fun and creating something together. It's musical theater is similar. I mean, it's not just you, it's you and a composer and a lyricist and a director, and then eventually the cast. And like, you're just constantly building and adding and shifting. And I got the great privilege of working with Eric McCormick when we did Wild About You in London for 2 nights. And he sings on the album, sounds amazing.
I had
And
no
did,
idea about
the
his singing
concert
voice.
version.
My God.
Right? He's spectacular. Like, he's, talk about a guy who just always surprises you. But working with him in the book scenes was like a fantasy come true. I mean, it's, I don't think I'll ever write for sitcoms. I'm not that kind of a writer, but for one short little period, it felt like I got to, because he's a master. He knows timing, he knows pacing, he knows staging, and he's fast as hell because that's his training. And it was just a dream. I mean, it's just an absolute dream. And talk about someone who makes your writing better and pushes you to be better and inspires you to be better. I mean, what more do you want? I have no interest in walking into a room and acting like I'm the genius and everyone just needs to say the words the way I wrote them. I have all the interest in the world in collaborating.
Yeah, there's just something really special about being surprised by someone else taking your idea even just a yard further than when you thought it was the best it could be, and then you go, no, God, that's better. You got that from my thing?
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just the way they can spin a word, the way they spin a phrase or give a look or whatever it is. I mean, I know we all as writers complain about actors from time to time because we are a petty breed, but at the end of the day, we love and adore them. I mean, if you've seen the David Chase documentary on HBO yet about him writing The Sopranos, but it's just gorgeous. I mean, the way he speaks about how these actors brought these ideas of his to life. I mean, it gives you chills. I mean, every once in a while, you're lucky enough to dream something up, and then people come to play with you, and they elevate it, and then you elevate, and then they elevate again, and it's just this beautiful tennis match.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much for chatting with me about it all today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We're going to play a little bit of the music for folks in the interview. It's a wonderful album, and I can't wait for folks to get to experience it more.
Oh, I know. We kind of got derailed from the Kings. If you wanted to talk about that.
Oh, sure. No. So, I mean, I absolutely loved Good Wife all the way through, and then watching it turn into Good Fight and almost feel off the leash, just unrestrained. And now we can just we got Schoolhouse Rock style explainers about things and all of these things that I then felt like I saw go up another notch in towards evil. Did that feel different than your expectation of how television? Do they run a room differently than you expected, or is it just its own animal?
Only in that it was full of kindness. Like,
gosh, nope, that's not always what you can count on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is you don't expect that, but there is just so much respect in that room for everyone in the room. You don't hear no a lot. You might hear the word okay after a pitch. Anyone else? But you don't hear no, not that. Like, you don't get shut down. Everyone's allowed to pitch. I always talk about Robert King's style of show running like a great conductor. He knows how to bring certain sounds to the forefront and gently let other sounds just go quieter. He he knows who hasn't spoken in a while and can tell they're thinking about something and will ask them pointed questions. But it's not a lot of him sitting there pontificating. It's him allowing the group to chat as a whole and argue. The biggest thing I learned was, as soon as we start arguing, that's how we know we have the next episode. Because if we all agree, there's nothing to write about.
Yeah.
So that was great. And as far as their style, I mean, it's all comes straight from them. I mean, the sense of goofiness, the sense of joy and satire. I don't think they could write something without it. I really don't. I mean, they could. They're brilliant writers, but I don't think they'd want to.
Yeah.
It's just so natural to who they are, and so everything kind of comes with that spin. I remember reading the pilot of Evil for the first time and just being so excited because I'd never read anything like it. Like, it was scary but hilarious and procedural, but not like by the book. It was never read anything like, and it was an absolute thrill to work on it and to watch the whole thing come together, because the way they built that show and designed it and designed the look and the feel of it, the Evil world had a very specific style to it.
There's camera angles up, and there's truly a visual language that I hope folks folks finish this interview and go back and rewatch some of it, because it's there and it's beautiful to catch.
It's there, and it's very specific because lookbooks were created for every director. The certain moments there's a visual look, and other, I don't want to give away the secrets, but but for very specific emotional moments for characters, looks were designed, and they followed through and they stayed on it, and then it just kept growing and getting crazier and more exciting and more amusing, and it just balanced. I think they do a great job representing the world as it is, which isn't all negative and isn't all smiley sunshine. Like, they really know how to say, look, it's both really depressing that we're alive right now, and it's also really quite wonderful that what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Like, I still haven't figured out how they do it so well, but my God, will I watch anything they ever do, because it is just spectacular.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of two things in particular. The having Good Fight handle the fake second court, and how absurd, giant, crazy television idea kind of thing that is, but at the same time, it let y'all do what I kind of usually look to sci-fi or something to do, which is nail a current discussion that is actually almost too hot to touch. In a way where a little bit of sugar makes the medicine go down. That's alien planet Zonthar. It's not us, obviously. Because I remember watching that, going, no, you cannot do that. You cannot allow that court to stand. That is the end of the American legal system. That's bad. And the show allowed us to discuss it at home in my living room for weeks, in a way that wasn't in the. Too often we're just discussing the emergency because it just happened in the news, and that's past the point of being able to talk about it. And now I'm getting it on this TV show in a way that is also fun, but also the show would go off and I'd sit with my wife and really discuss this of why is that so, why am I so engaged and angry about the premise, and because it touches on something real and scary.
Well, we were so close. I mean, the whole Trump administration led us to a very dangerous point legally. People weren't obeying subpoenas. People weren't being jailed for not obeying subpoenas. That was one thing we went into.
Yeah. Just the amount of things that we discovered weren't laws. They were just traditions. And oh, crap.
Right. And the whole idea of our government and how it works is only an idea. And And that's always been the case. We've just always had someone in power who understood and respected that. But when you have someone in power who doesn't respect that, things get very scary very fast.
Yeah.
And only if you're paying attention. Because if you're not paying attention, which, in fairness, I don't think most Americans are, because they're just trying to pay the bills.
Right.
They're just trying to make enough money to buy dinner and pay the electricity bill this week. So, no, they're not paying attention to how the legal system is falling apart. So I thought doing a story like that was kind of brilliant, because it is fun and silly, and you're kind of like, oh, this is fun. And to some extent, you're even like, oh, I wish the legal system worked like that to some extent, because it wasn't smart lawyers who, cost a small fortune, can play their little legal tricks and loopholes.
Right.
It's a common sense court, which is like great, but then it goes the way it goes. And the whole thing was inspired because we were building that season as January 6th happened. Like, we stopped the room and we all watched it as a group, and it was, it was horrifying. We watched every second of January 6th, and it was just overwhelming. And we took a day off and we got back together. And that was one of the pitches by a writer who wasn't me, though. God, I wish it was. But it was a brilliant, brilliant pitch. I think it was from Orrin Squire, who also has a book to a new musical going to Broadway right now. But it was a quintessential Orrin pitch. He's one of the most original thinkers I've ever gotten to work with. And at first it sounds crazy, and then it sounds actually not crazy enough for the Trump administration.
Right.
Well,
that's just silly. That's not happening down the street, is it? Yeah.
And yet at the same time, it felt so real and so plausible. And I have to say, we had way too fun writing it, because also there was only like one or two lawyers in the room. So suddenly all of us non-lawyers got to really dive into the law scenes with complete abandon, because the rules didn't matter.
Right.
So we could just write whatever we wanted, and it could be silly and entertaining. I don't know if this ever made it in, but there is one where a lawyer says to Mandy Patinkin's judge, I need you to recuse yourself. And Mandy Patinkin says, yeah, sure. And he recuses himself from the case and walks back on with like a silly hat and a mustache. And tries to pretend. I don't think we ever did it.
That's hilarious.
Made me giggle so hard, because I'm just like, every once in a while, and I think that was the thing, is at the end of 4 years of Trump, we were slap happy.
Yeah.
We were just so whiplashed and like, what is going on?
Well, and I think we were all in our living room as well. I think it's why the seasons hit just right, and that sense of humor to it, while also taking the scariness of it a little seriously, I think really, really hit home.
Well, and you can only pull that off with someone like Christine Baranski as your lead, faithfully, because she just masterfully knew how to play that whole season. Where she could be the voice for the audience going, this doesn't feel smart.
Yeah, maybe we shut this down.
Yeah. But without like raining on the parade and feeling dour, like she's truly just one of the greats. So
the thing that opened our conversation, in Evil, I think that show did something I just remarkably don't see enough in shows. Y'all took the character of Cheryl, the mother and Katya's mother in the show, to a truly villainous point, and a point where I really hated that character, and then did the true magic trick of bringing that character around in the last season to a point where I was genuinely broken up to see her go, and I thought, no, I honestly hated her for a moment. How did they bring her back while not having her be untrue to the character she was? I thought that was a wonderful masterstroke there.
Yeah, That's a great one because I think they created a character who was a survivor, and so you understood why this woman did a lot of things other people wouldn't do to get through. And I think really what anchored the whole idea is she'll do anything as long as it doesn't hurt her grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, a very, maybe I'm on a different side of the moral scale, but I think that's a very understandable point of view to go through life, where sometimes you just got to protect the family first, and then you got to do whatever you got to do to get to the end of the day sometimes. And I don't think you can hate a character too much for that. And also, again, it helps that you have Christine Lottie, because I think the original concept was that character would be sacrificed at the end of season 1. But then you cast Christine Lottie and you're like, no, we're not getting rid of her anytime soon. She's so good. Like, why would you let go of that? And she continued to prove every second she was on screen.
Oh, yeah. She's just electric.
I mean, just unbelievable. It was really, really something fun and fantastic. So I think about the episode where she teaches her granddaughter how to fight back.
Yes.
On a regular basis. It's just one of the funniest episodes. And she's so great and just grounded in it, like she's so funny because she never even hints that she thinks the scene is funny. Like, it's so amazing.
Just plays it. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much for telling me about just all of it. The book writing, the show writing. It's an absolute joy to get to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
This has been a blast. I could talk about TV and theater all day.
Same.
Anytime you want to chat. Call me.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.